As you may have heard, WNBA fans are going crazy and accusing the league of manipulating games for Caitlin Clark. They are saying that the WNBA president herself forced Sydney Colson to sign with the league in order to get Clark a ring. This is where things get really interesting, though, because people are already forming an agenda that if Clark wins a championship, it's only because she's on a super team. They're acting as though the Indiana Fever is the only team stacking talent. You may be wondering what the real story is, so let's examine the situation and see what's going on. The WNBA is allegedly manipulating the entire situation to ensure that Caitlin Clark wins, and the reason for this is that Sydney Colson, a backup point guard who averaged just 2 points per game, is the reason why Aces fans are going crazy over her signing with the Fever. The WNBA community seems to be going crazy, but let's break it down to see why they are so upset. Can you believe that a guy who seldom ever plays is now the subject of a crazy WNBA conspiracy theory based on his 5 points per game from the previous season? You know you have to exercise caution. We don't yet know how all of these individuals will interact, but the notion that this is a huge setup is making Aces fans furious. They claim that the WNBA is manipulating the game to get a ring for Caitlin Clark. This is where things get really interesting, though, because some fans are claiming that Cathy Engelbert, the WNBA president, made the call to sign Colson. Listen to what I'm about to say. I don't care. I'm a big dog. I can handle it. Cathy made the call because you're telling me that the two-time WNBA champion and the face of the God Dog League is okay, the Aces' main girl right-hand man. Sydney Colson is leaving the Aces and joining the Indiana Fever. First, do the Fever have any open roster spots? How many people are you guys going to sign? You may be wondering why the league president would care about a backup point guard, but let's face it, this reaction is all about Caitlin Clark. The fans are angry and scared. What does it mean that Sydney Colson is joining the Indiana Fever? The Indiana Fever took Devi and Natasha, and now they have Sydney Season. Why would they take Sydney away from us? I didn't know they were going to load up like this, but Clark is the most exciting rookie to enter the league in years. She's breaking records left and right. And now that she has a solid team around her, the Aces fans see the writing on the wall and are not happy about it. The league and the Fever organization are doing everything they can to make sure their star is happy and that their star gets a ring. Would they take City from us? What we ever do to Indiana, according to our exes, beat them. Kelsey Mitchell, you already have Aaliyah, Boston, Caitlin, Lexi, and the MAGA Barbie look. This will be both good and bad for the Fever, but the worst part is that if Clark wins a championship, some fans are already planning to discredit her by claiming that she only won because of a super team. Can you believe the mental gymnastics they're doing? 1 minute they're lamenting that no one wants to play with Clark, and the next they're crying about her having too much help. That's you look like a damn fool. Sydney Colson is a good player, but she's not really changing the game here. She's a solid backup, has a great locker room presence, and is friends with Kelsey Mitchell. That's all. Okay, you look like a damn idiot right now. Let's talk about this super team nonsense for a moment. Sure, the Fever have made some good moves, but are they really that much stronger than other teams in the league? The Liberty and the Aces themselves have a stacked roster, so are they? The truth is that the Aces fans are scared of Caitlin Clark. They see her potential and the team Indiana is building around her, and instead of admitting they are worried, they are creating these crazy conspiracy theories. However, the thing about this reaction from Aces fans is that it shows more about their fear of Caitlin Clark than any actual conspiracy. They are so afraid of what Clark might do in the league that they are trying to discredit her before she even plays her second season start this year. They are complaining about Cheryl Swoops' connection to the agent as well, but they say she's still a good locker room player and she wouldn't be at Indiana if she didn't. And yes, there is a story floating around that Cathy Engelbert made the call. All right. Cathy Engelbert, we need to make sure we get Caitlin Clark the championship. Number one, they're freaking out. Number two, you're going to hear that Caitlin C needs a super team to win a championship, so they're going to downgrade her status and they're going to on her over that. That's already started. That's where they're going with this, people. Now, you may be wondering if there isn't a conspiracy. The reason players are flocking to Indiana isn't because of some grand WNBA scheme, generational talent, but I will say that with that one, you now have Colson, who is big, and Denana Boner, and you have all these players, but the reason they went to the Fever has nothing to do with Kathy Ann Glore. Let's start by talking about Natasha Howard, who is dreaming of playing for the Fever. This is where it gets interesting, though, because Howard sees an opportunity to be a part of something special. She wants to play with Clark, of course, but she also sees the potential for her own development. It's like joining a team that is on the verge of becoming a dynasty, and who wouldn't want that? Let me explain why every new player wants to be there, particularly with Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Jaylen Brown. Those people are probably going to be cut before the season begins. Remember when they said that no one would want to play with Clark? Well, those people are now taking back their statements. Sophie Cunningham is moving to Indiana because she saw the opportunity to play with Clark and be a part of a competitive team. If she didn't want to be there, she wouldn't be there. It's funny to see the old WNBA fans go crazy because, by the way, who would ever guessed that you have a top 5 player and a top 15 player on rookie deals? Sydney Colson has her own reasons for joining the Fever. As you may be wondering, she's friends with Kelsey Mitchell. Colson sees an opportunity to be a true backup and contribute to a winning team, and she'll get to play with her friend. It's like a dream come true for her because she can still average 12 or 13 points per game. She has a chance of winning a championship, and she doesn't have to play 35 minutes per game. However, if she moved to Phoenix, she would still have to play 35 minutes per game. Simply put, they have the cap space to make these moves because their top players are on rookie contracts, which allows them to sign multiple players. It's smart team building. Did anyone realize that they lost Wheeler's contract? They were still far below the Scholar Cup last year, and everyone knew going into this season that they had the ability to sign 2 max contract players, even with Kelsey Mitchell back. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Fever are attracting players not because of some shady backroom deals. They're using their cap space effectively, and players are taking notice. They're following the league's rules, but everyone knew they could sign 2 max contract players in addition to Kelsey Mitchell because of how cheap everyone else on the roster is. The next highest paid player after their 3 max contract players, Katie Lou, is $100K, Sophie Cuny, and they have a number of players on rookie deals. That's the problem with the aces of 4 max contract players and they have to fill it with rookie deals. Finally, let's talk about Sydney Colson. She's not just any player. She'll be fantastic for the Fever, but more importantly, she'll have a great locker room presence, which is crucial. Or bad, but she will undoubtedly improve the team. The reason they can do this is because 2 of their 3 best players from the previous season were on rookie contracts, and they will both be on rookie contracts next year. This is a huge deal. I'm not sure what will happen to Lexi Hall, who is in the final year of a contract, whether they want to pay her or not. The real reason why players are flocking to Indiana is a confluence of factors. Sure, Clark's star power is a big draw, but it's not the only thing. The Fever has created an environment where players see opportunities for growth, leadership, and success. It's as if they have discovered the secret recipe for creating a winning team, and everyone wants a taste. Caitlin Clark has a squad now. The Denana Bonner joined the Indiana Fever. They have 5 of the league's top 30 scorers in terms of points per game from the previous season, and they've also improved their defense and general toughness while demonstrating that players do want to play with CC after all. Their life on the court will get easier, they'll get more endorsements, they'll gain more fans, and they'll have a chance to win because the Fever shouldn't just be thinking about championships, but they should be thinking about dynasty in the CIT and Clark era. Now, let's talk about the whole super team thing. You might be thinking, fourish, but wait, because we're about to. dispel this myth completely. The Fever has some incredible talent, but they're not the only team with a stacked roster. The Liberty and the Aces are releasing lineups that resemble all-star games every night. So why is everyone freaking out over the Fever? You could argue that they have 4 all-star players from the previous season, which is true. However, in the modern WNBA, having multiple all-stars on one team is more common than you might think. The Mercury has Kay Copper-Satu and Alyssa Thomas, so they are a super team on paper. The Lynx are a fantastic team. They're not a super team in terms of players, but they're a great team because all the older pieces fit together. Now, you might be wondering if she's the missing piece that makes this a super team. Well, let's put a stop to that notion. At her best, she's a character actor, scoring 2.5 points per game, 1 assist, and serving as a backup point guard. This is where it gets really interesting. The strength of the Fever isn't having a bunch of superstars, rather it's about how these players fit together. Imagine a puzzle where each piece has its place, and when they all fit together, that's when the magic happens. It's not just about individual talent, it's about building a team that's better than the sum of its parts. And the Fever is doing just that. And it's smart basketball. But here's the real kicker. The Fever's roster construction is actually pretty clever. They're using players on rookie deals effectively, which gives them flexibility, room to grow, and the ability to build for the future. All of those pieces fit together perfectly. They complement each other's weaknesses and strengths. Who has spacing, defense, and everything. The Fever did a great job in free agency. There are always going to be super teams because there are 13 teams. You can have 4 players on rookie contracts on one team as long as you have guys on rookie deals. But what about all the hype? Well, it's human nature for people to start seeing conspiracies everywhere when something big happens, like Caitlin Clark joining the Fever. For a moment, let's face it, the idea that the league is plotting to help Clark win a championship isn't how professional sports operate. It's just clever team building and good timing. This is known as assembling a championship team. What's actually happening with the Fever is that they're building a team the right way, and they're looking for players who complement each other, not just stars who can fill a stat sheet. It's about creating a balanced roster that can compete night in and night out. But my favorite part of this is that, well, people are going crazy, especially because the player who started it was Sydney Colson, who missed 2 points per game. I know that Sydney Colson is a great player, but she, I repeat, is not the difference between a good and a bad team.